You know, there's a joke that people have is that once you turn 21, you're immediately put on hard support or breach because you're too old for the game. Well, these guys aren't exactly that extreme about it, but it's very, very obvious that the more experienced and veteran hands are doing more of the support work.
So it looks like we get a repeat in terms of maps played. We played Kafe in the last match. We'll play Kafe once more. So going once more into the breach, dear friends, once more.
Excellent quote to use here. I like it. I like it very much.
Let's see what we actually see from these teams on this map. I all but guarantee a Thatcher ban. I'll just put that out there. Thatcher's probably going to be banned. Ninjas in Pyjamas, every time they've played Kafe in recent history, and that's a lot, they always ban it. So it's going to be another one of those. Who do you think is going to win? Go ahead and tell us.
I suspect that it's going to be NiP, and it is NiP by quite a large margin, 84%, 10% for Black Dragons, 6% of you thinking that there's going to be a draw. That is very definitive. I think the highest so far we've seen this season was 88%. So not too much of a surprise there for NiP with as dominant as they have been. What is interesting, though, about what you said about Kafe Dostoevsky is just two small things. First, this is a rematch from Playdate number 2, as most of these matches will be, where it was played on Kafe, and it was NiP coming out ahead 7-5. But if you go and you look at the 6 Invitational, NiP had a almost allergic reaction to playing Kafe Dostoevsky. The last time in recorded play that I saw, at least, was when they went up against TSM really early on before they got bounced to the lower bracket. After that, there was no Kafe play. And in fact, Kafe did not even come up in the final best of 5 either. It was banned out. So funny enough, NiP have played this map a fair bit when it comes to online play, though they haven't liked to do so on LAN. You called it right, though, Michael. The very first ban is going to be Thatcher, and I suspect this will probably be a Hibana, maybe a Capital, but it will very likely be one of the hard breachers.
I'm guessing a Maverick, and there it is. Maverick is a banned out. So everything in line with expectations so far. And then let's see, probably Maestro or Mira would be my guess. Typical stuff for Black Dragons. So this is all in line with the standard fare. Now with Mira being banned, NiP is in a bit of a pickle because Mira is the only operator they've banned recently on this map. So Maestro, Echo, Valkyrie, something along those lines maybe. And it'll be a left turn into Cade. All right, cool. So something different. That's the only variation we're getting in this ban phase from the bog standard ban phase that you get from both of these teams every single time they come to this map. So really just super predictable bans there, except for the neat little Cade ban at the end. That's like I said, a little bit different. So we get this match started. Going to be a bar defense for Ninjas in Pyjamas to lead things off. That's just, again, more of the standard, the same old. Ninjas in Pyjamas prefer to go to bar, typically speaking. And yeah, they've had some interesting results with Kafe. It's definitely not been their best map overall. They lost against TSM. They managed to beat Liquid on it, or rather, no, they lost it against Liquid. They beat Liquid in the series, but they lost Kafe against Liquid. They beat Liquid on Kafe in Pro League, but at the Invitational, it was just not a map that they really brought very much. Considering they made it all the way to the finals through the loser bracket, they played a lot of matches, and they only played Kafe twice at Invitationals. So we'll see if this is going to be a good pick from Black Dragons, and it could very well be, considering, as you said, it's a rematch. BD managed to bring this very close the last time they took NiP to Kafe. Could be that they push it all the way in this match here.
That's one of the things that Black Dragons might struggle with, is to actually understand the way that NiP is going to play on this map. You know, there's obviously some heavy counter-stratting that can go in for teams to try and figure out exactly how they're going to tackle these challenges, and right now you're kind of flying blind, I feel like. Now, one interesting thing is the attackers head on to repel. Jaeger was playing downstairs inside a bakery. It's not an odd spot for Psycho to play, but he could have potentially rushed out and taken care of somebody who was on Repel in a very vulnerable state, but he'll have to ascend the stairs and get back up because very quickly Black Dragons could possibly patrol those stairs and cut off his return to the site, but the one spot that it doesn't look like they have any sights on is going to be White Stairs, and that's very likely where he'll come back. So I don't know if Psycho was just expecting maybe. Some teams like to clear Kafe from the bottom up, but right now Black Dragons very much invested in going top down.
It looks like they're just going to vault in. The C4 misses, and so will the Buck. Pino not missing with the knife, but Wag is able to get the refrag. It's a constant back and forth here, but Ninjas in Pyjamas coming out on top. Lagonis now the last attacker, and he's just going to repel in haphazardly and die. Nint will take round number 1.
That round was over in exactly 1 minute, so I don't know if you could really call it the 20-second meta. Maybe 20 seconds for them all to die, I suppose, but ultimately, that was a very brazen attempt from Black Dragons. I mean, they thought that they had Skylight control. They read that there were no ADSs in play. If they'd found out that Psycho was down below, they figure, oh, at worst case, it's a 4v5 or a 5v4 if you're Black Dragons. Let's just head on in. And that Skylight essentially ends up being a clown car as every single member of Black Dragons just emerges from it all at once, but it's answered very quickly by Nip. And it doesn't take much for you to just communicate that they're all dropping Skylight. You train your sights on it, and you're very vulnerable as an attacking force. I don't even know if they were able to get the track stingers off from Gridlock, which really greatly would have aided that drop because it cuts off the chance of Nip being able to push in from either Piano, from over towards Cocktail, or top of White. Regardless, that one was over very quickly, and with that, Nip now have very limited time to strategize and head right down to Kitchen.
Yeah, I think if we've seen anything proven by Latin America over this last week, it's that they are the team that adheres the least to the 20-second meta. Like, I think that's mostly especially a North American thing. Every North American Playday has just been the same thing over and over again when it comes to slowing down the attack, but not as much for LATAM. You see it sometimes here and there, but it's just not as prevalent. Now, you know, that's just an interesting little difference in thought process, too. And in the general philosophy of the game. That Nip just, or not Nip, but LATAM majorly aren't doing that whole 20-second meta thing. And we'll even see sometimes it gets down to the last 20 seconds regardless. But it's not something that's being necessarily leaned into too heavily, despite its potency. Now, Kitchen is a decent bomb site for Nip. I say decent. They've got about a 50-50 chance of winning this based on their history. So we'll see what BD does. It's definitely a low-hanging fruit. That's how I would describe it anyway. This is an opportunity for BD to take a round. That last round, I don't know if I really count that as anything because it was just a rush strategy. And that is, well, that's the same thing. It's a hit or miss sort of situation. And you can't really gauge an enemy or an attacking team based on a rush strat because, I mean, either the enemy team, the defenders are not ready, or you lose.
Yeah. I mean, we saw FaZe do that a very similar rush strategy using an Amaru, and well, Secret had done it as well. Hornetow breathing in an awful lot of gas and picks the wrong time to go onto his drone, as one of his teammates is actually credited with the very first kill. It's the Ash of PZD taking out probably the most important operator in the final minute of action, especially when an execute from the attackers begins to unfold. That's Psycho. The Echo is gone. Always reminding people that even though Psycho is dead, his yokai drones, last spotted by Black Dragons, will continue to hang around for the remainder of the matchup. And they're, of course, visible from everybody, so that's still intel that will be able to get communicated from Nip and also from Psycho, who's going to be on cam duty. A gorgeous shot from Muzi all the way from inside of Kitchen towards the back of White Stairs will find Hugzord. And with the Zofia going, she is the Swiss Army knife of utility, and she is off the board. PZD is second kill, this time on Pino, as it looks like an exothermic charge will go off just to the right of Kamikaze. Down goes Hornetow as Muzi continues to rotate over, and now Shotgun comes in, flattening Lagonis. Immediately a toxic canister gets thrown out for Kamikaze to just sit in the smog and wait, as there is a little bit of cover for him. But he pushes up, he loses the plot, down he goes to Wog. Diffuser's been surrendered as well. Will need to be retrieved by Black Dragons, as it'll be all up to Julio as Muzi gets spotted and finished off too. Two members of Black Dragons with double kills, one of them looking for their third. PZD and Wog But there it is, the Ash, who started things off. Well, he'll finish the party. He crashes Julio's party, to be exact, as he's deep inside of the site, and a retake from the Ela will not happen. Black Dragons, after a rush strat that falls apart, does a pretty good job of going blow for blow with Nip, and they take the second round because of it.
So Ninjas in Pajamas is a little bit of a wonky setup, I gotta say. They were half holding on to Bakery with their Wamai, and then that ended up costing them because clearly a bad decision, as that gives away the first pick. And then they weren't contesting the Bakery wall, and there was no roam above from Nip. So there are 3 different ways you can hold on to or just defend against a Bakery attack, okay? So those 3 different ways are as follows. You can, 1, hold Bakery. Now, this is a risk, and it can work out for you, but you put yourself at, I guess, in line of sight for the attackers. They can easily confront that and take the fight to you. And it's definitely winnable if the right player is in Bakery and supported by people in prep, for example. But that wasn't what Nip were doing. They were sort of trying to hold Bakery, but they didn't fully reinforce prep, so there's no really good retreat option for the defenders, and there was only one of them there. And so, again, that's just basically a free pick for BD at that point. So they're not doing that. The other option is you can try and run denial on the Bakery wall. Like, you can bring Bandit or Kaid and trick it. Of course, Kaid's banned here by Nip. You can bring a Mute maybe to try and slow it down. But, I mean, that didn't really factor in. The wall got opened up, so that's not what Nip are doing. Then the other option is you can hold it from above. But they didn't do that either. So, basically, Nip let the Bakery take transpire. Didn't really do anything about it. BD opens up all these angles, and they start raining Hellfire down on the site, getting all these kills one after another. And yeah, okay, Muzi is putting up some work. He's getting kills and answering back, and good job to Muzi. Right time, right place, and not, making a mistake of it. But that's not something you want to rely on. That's just somebody winning gunfights. That's Muzi being a nutty player. You cannot lean on that all the time. So that was a bad setup, to be honest, for Nip on basement. Not big,
and one player's strong ability to have good mechanical skills and or good reflexes does not a strategy make, and you can't continuously rely on it. I mean, we've seen teams be able to steal a round or 2 away from their opposition, largely because one of their players just catches fire and is maybe well supported, as Ion was in our very first matchup against Singularity, or is just able to play off of good game sense and skill on their own. But you're right, that's not a strategic element. That is, you can't plan around that. You have to just kind of hope that as the round unfolds, somebody's confidence and moxie is good enough where they're able to just prey upon the disarray that they might find their opponents in. So with that said, we turn sights to round number 3 here, and it's been a minute and a half, at least on the clock. It's a stack up inside of Piano by Black Dragons, and a C4 from Julio will find Lagonis. The single hard breacher from Black Dragons is now gone, making your job a lot more challenging. Now, don't be fooled. Though Black Dragons is upstairs, the site is reading down below, and it looks like Pino's going to take the engagement against PZD and just simply lose. Odd choice for him. Wog also grabbing Kamikaze will now give Black Dragons a numbers advantage as they have complete control above, and they can watch as PZD just very narrowly misses out on one member of Black Dragons, or one member of NIP, who crosses down below. Muzi to refrag with Wog there as well, and things are falling apart in a hurry for NIP, as Psycho and Muzi will look to hold on. They've got so much intel and so many marks, with the Jaeger of Muzi knowing that the Jackal is playing just by pillars. It's a cat and mouse game as the Jaeger is going to be hunted down. He's got the Jackal tracks on him, but if there's anybody that is equipped to be able to deal with this, it'll be the Jackal. Beautiful play by Psycho as he pops out to find the Jackal, but instead gets a free Ash, leaving Hornetow in a 1v2 and a 0v2, with Nip getting the upper hand at the very end, with Muzi popping up and punishing the Buck for being a bit too slow to get in line with the rest of his team. Nip answer back, and they will regain the lead in this matchup.
So, yeah, a bit too slow at the end, but way too fast at the beginning. When Black Dragons established control of the top floor, they didn't do enough with it. And they could have easily done more than they did. But no, not the case. The vertical control did not factor in for Black Dragons. They tried to drop, I'd say unnecessarily. And so Nip, well, you said it yourself, Parker, they're catching free kills as Ash, for example, drops. And then the Jackal's trying to challenge the Muzi. He loses that fight. I mean, I don't really know what the thought process was there for BD, but their vertical control didn't factor in because they didn't let it factor in because they weren't just using it. And they could have. And that one little time where the Ash makes a hole in backbar storage and then barely misses out on killing the Valkyrie, that is a great example of impatience being displayed by BD. Why would you open the hole to then not use it at all for the remainder of the round? Nobody used that hole after it got opened. It's just an idea, I guess. It's just like, oh, the defenders have to think about this. Well, that doesn't work if you open up above the entire bomb site. Defenders are going to use what's available to them. What they think might be unwatched. And, well, everything was unwatched by BD because they were rushing to their deaths downstairs.
We now have an opportunity to once again see a kitchen on the board if Nip wants to go there, but unsurprisingly, they'll go up to Bar Cocktail, and I will put a little asterisk next to the fact that I said unsurprisingly, because while Bar and Cocktail still, to the best of my knowledge, leads the way for the most picked site, it is definitely in decline. Teams do not appreciate going there all the time. They do like to cycle in Reading and Kitchen more, but I think that Nip not going to Kitchen here shows that they are not confident. You mentioned quite a lot in the previous round when we were recapping that second round, and the failed hold from Nip was that their strategy and their setup presented a lot of problems, and there were just a lot of areas of improvement, and I think Nip understands this, and that's very likely why, if they do go there, we're just going to see it in the next round, proving that Cocktail ends up going in Nip's way. So with that said, I don't suspect we're going to see what ultimately was the undoing of Black Dragons the last time they attacked Bar Cocktail, which is that they all just dropped through the skylight. It looks to be a lot more pronounced and a lot more, I guess you could say practice, because the round was actually over at this point on the last Bar Cocktail take for Black Dragons.
Yeah, that one doesn't really count. We're going to pretend it didn't happen. It'll still count on the scoreboard, but it doesn't really add to our analysis really at all. The take right now we're seeing is pretty standard. Hugzord's going to get Kamikaze, who had been playing inside of Cigar. He was trying his best to delay the push. Pino will get Hugzord, though, so there's a retake, I guess, of Cigar, I would assume. I'm not seeing it happen, but that seems to be what's going on. Meanwhile, the focus for the rest of BD seems to be Pixel Spot. Rightfully so. It's a very powerful position. But Pino is able to get another kill as he gets aggressive on Cigar. He's going for a third. This is very dangerous, but he'll get that third. And Psycho will get one from Red Stairs. The last player, Wag, will finally finish off Pino, but he's got to find 3 more. Peeking into Red, looking for the Jaeger, who has fallen back. Psycho not taking the unnecessary risk of lingering on Red Stairs. There's a whole minute for Wag to find 3 players, so it's not impossible. It's just unlikely.
It's the same castle setup that we've seen from Nip before, as Wog is basically out to lunch at this point. There's almost no way that he was going to be able to bring that one back. I know that we saw it from Ion, but these were very different circumstances, especially when all the intel is in the defender's hands this time, which was where Wog found himself on the wrong side of. But that castle strategy that we saw from Nip is very textbook Ninjas in Pyjamas. They barricade themselves essentially inside of Piano. They play by Pixel Spot. They play by Bathroom. They don't allow anybody to go in. By the time you finally open up all those castle barricades, there is usually a couple more ADSs situated back by the bench. There's a deployable shield by the bench, and Nip just need to hold that one small position, which is where Kamikaze usually plays, or at least what we saw in Montreal last month. I imagine that with Wamai being added to the mix, there is an additional opportunity for Nip to make that fortress inside of Piano far more frustrating, so that the attackers have to commit more than they're expecting just to be able to grab that control away. Regardless, it was a very linear attack from Black Dragons. Instead of going through the main skylight, they decided to go through both of the hatches, and as they did so, they were not expecting Nip to be able to take all of those lanes and avenues away from them and basically greet them on that landing of Red Stairs as well as under New Hatch. And because there was nobody from Black Dragons at that point watching New Hatch, it allowed Nip to just sit there without being challenged and without being contested. So Bar and Cocktail, a very different take from Black Dragons this time. Same result that we saw, though. Ninjas in Pyjamas ultimately crushing them. And now we see Kitchen yet again. Can Nip shore up all of the defects that they had with this strategy that you mentioned? And, well, they're going to be starting with an operator that we don't usually see an awful lot, Michael, which is Warden.
Warden is an uncommon pick, that's for sure. I guess, I mean, you can make it work, right? It's not a bad pick necessarily. The only reason why, I mean, like, for some people, they would call this a bad pick, right? If you're looking at the relative meta outside of LATAM, I would call this a bad pick. I was talking about it in the last match, and I'll talk about it again here. The LATAM meta being very different than the rest of the world, you know, everyone else adhering to that 20-second meta, that's not really being shown as a thought process for the defense. And since Nip's not leaning into that and BD's not expecting it, I guess, you know, you don't have to do it. So, yeah, bring a Warden. Trying to make taking gunfights easier. Nip's thought process here is they're going for the good old-fashioned bakery hold. See if that works out for them. Echo is a very risky operator to be putting in this position. He's managed to get a lot of drones already and quite a lot of utility wasted. Pino, though, supporting him from prep is going to get one, and there's a second. All he's doing is peeking here, and he's winning fights. A third for Pino. He's just really hitting his shots, and I'm wondering why we're not looking at his perspective. There's two more for Pino to find outside this door. We'll see if he manages that. Psycho has yet to find one himself. Oh, here we go.
You think it's safe to say at this point, Michael, that they have very much learned from their mistakes?
Yeah. Nip know they needed to hold on to Bakery or do something to stop a Bakery take, and well, they're doing that now. Now, Pino's individual performance is stopped as he's now finally shut down. There's still Psycho in Bakery. Kamikaze's put into Pino's role, and Psycho gets the final kill. So Nip, yes, they learned from their mistakes. They realized the problem and they fixed it.
Adding insult to injury is Psycho wearing that Lagonis charm against his team. Oh no! Or maybe just an homage. Who knows? Maybe it's just tipping your hat to them. Regardless, a very different setup that basically forced Black Dragons to funnel in through the front of Bakery. They weren't really able to gain much ground at all, as they all just got fed to that meat grinder that was Pino, though he was playing very far away from the meat locker, not to be confused with the call out, towards the back of kitchen. Regardless, lots of meat action in this reference. Apologies to the vegans that are watching this. However, Pino played that really well. There was a yokai above him. We could see that there was a yokai situated by the silhouette and just sitting and waiting, watching the main doorway, and Pino was able to capitalize off of calls that were made from Psycho and possibly even anybody else. You've got the anchors that are playing inside a site. They could be the ones that were actively sitting on the yokai. We don't really know exactly who was making those calls for him. But regardless, it was Pino doing things that he is capable of. He's a very flexible player. He was one of the best players, if not arguably the second best player to a lot of people, maybe the best player at the Invitational, as I know that the regions quarreled when Rampy was given the MVP award for it. But regardless, Pino was able to pull off these Herculean, superhuman feats with any operator. Doesn't matter if it's an operator that is intended to frag. It doesn't matter if it's an operator that is more support. And right now, he is working exceptionally well in the roles that they put him in. Now, he's kind of overshadowing Musi because Musi and him have a very similar style, except Musi only has one death and 7 kills versus the 7, 5, and 5 of Pino, as Pino has been helping out in terms of assists, but also playing more of a backseat to Musi and even somewhat Psycho over a couple rounds. Nip's flexibility and their composure allows them to dictate the pace of so many of these rounds. And on that particular take, Black Dragons, honestly, they seemed like they were being suffocated and never really had a moment to catch their breath and assess that they needed to push elsewhere outside of Bakery.
Also worth keeping in mind that between Hornetau, Hugzord, and Lagonis, there is 1 kill. And it's on Hugzord. That's not a great result when you are 5 rounds in. And of course, kills are not everything, but when you have inactive guns like that, it really does speak to your team situation. And it is the obvious one of the major reasons why we find ourselves in a 4-1 favor Nip. Now, of course, this is a defender-sided map, and we have to re-stress that every time we get to it. But BD does need 2 rounds, and this is their last chance. If they don't get this last round, first half, then they're going to have a very rough go of it going into the second half. Every single one of those shots was missed. Uzi is on full HP. He shrugged that off. He didn't get hit. That is unfortunate. An opportunity missed. It's a top floor take here for Black Dragons. They need to clear out upstairs. And we'll see if they're able to make that happen. They'll start off well with a pick on to Pino. That's your Echo, who I believe was playing in Cocktail. And then you can see his corpse there. But still, Muzi and Kamikaze in a position to hold on to this top floor.
So you get the opening pick, you sacrifice it to Black Dragons, who, despite the stat line above you, these teams have traded out very well. Whoever gets the first pick. The Jaeger is completely blind inside a bathroom, but Lagonis hesitates to do much. He doesn't know who's in there, and this is just intel that is being deprived from Black Dragons, because if there's a smoke playing in there, you're not going to want to try to pressure on in. It was Muzi, though, so Lagonis heads in, still unable to find that frag that he needs. He's going to allow Hugzord and Wog more direct access to the site as they are down below, and Hugzord will start things off the way he needs to, but he doesn't understand that there's somebody playing up inside of New Hatch. And you can very much tell that the comms must be a mess for Black Dragons, because Hugzord expects somebody up in heaven, not New Hatch. So he finds himself in a rough spot, and he's all but dead. The ability to withstand is deceptive, because you think that there might have been somebody else in position to help out Hugzord, but no, he could have willed himself back together, as Zofia, the strong Polish woman, knows how to do in game, but runs out of time. Kamikaze finishes off, and 5-1 for a defender-sided Kafe. Well, that's pretty darn good for NIP. They very firmly have the momentum, and if Black Dragons is unable to break that, the mental momentum, Michael, this matchup might be over in just a couple of rounds.
So it's looking that way. Right now, NIP are transitioning onto attack, and obviously that's going to be a disadvantage for them. We'll see what they can manage on attack. But yeah, that last round, well, Black Dragons, they tried to clear out the top floor. And then they got one kill, and I guess maybe they assumed they had cleared out the top floor because their line of clear completely, it just failed in its entirety. They were caught way out of position. NIP, the last two players upstairs, swooped in, finished off that clear of the top floor. Then the only two players left on BD were the ones who were transitioning already, and this is way too early, by the way, to be transitioning to clear out the middle floor before you are sure you've cleared out the top floor. They should have had all manpower upstairs, finish that job, then you transition. And they still had plenty of time. It's not like they were in a rush. So it's a really odd situation for BD to find themselves in. Unnecessary inability to refrag is how I would describe it. And yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens now that BD go to defense. It'll probably be easier for them, obviously with the side, but I'd say their lack of synergy, that's alleviated as well. Not just because of the map, but because of the nature of defense.
It's been a real rough go from Black Dragons so far, and what do you expect here? You mentioned that, there's only one kill between the bottom three performers of Black Dragons. Their inability to find the scoreboard, regardless of whatever role you're on, is obviously extremely detrimental to your team, and I know that that might seem obvious, but we spend so much time focusing on how frags are not exactly the most be-all and end-all, the most important part of a matchup, but it doesn't matter what role you are. If you're just not able to get kills, you are a boat anchor to your team, especially against a very hyper-aggressive team like NIP, where you need to be able to match that fragging potential. You need to be able to go toe-to-toe with people like Muzi and Psycho and Pino, and right now, Black Dragons are just not able to do that. And it's no greater exemplified right now than what's going on with Lagonis. How is the smoke getting into an engagement in the first 40 seconds where you've lost a ton of HP on what, if you look at Black Dragon's lineup, he's probably the most crucial operator for when NIP's push comes out. And there's a ping that's going in. This is upside down repel. And Pino is perfectly primed to be able to take out Hugzord, who's playing by the Humidor.
Yeah, he might be able to get that kill, and he's going to actually get off that repel. Or no, he's still on it. He's still challenging, which means that Hugzord's going to be feeling a lot of pressure. BD do have C4s from below, and you can see PZD is trying to get that kill, but it's actually not being presented. Psycho working his way up White Stairs, but he's waiting before Muzi to link up with him so that they are sure they can have enough push power when it comes to the site. The main thing here is that primary defense is on the top floor, and NIP is focusing on the actual site itself, which is the middle floor. Psycho gets one on the entry. PCD responds with a C4, so he finally did get his C4 kill that he wanted onto the Buck of Pino. Took him a long time, but hey, better late than never. And that was all hinging on Pino.
Is Psycho in sight here? Is the UMP actually managed to outduel the R4C? Muzi losing that one to PZD. It looks like Psycho is just sitting in the middle of the site. Kamikaze is not too far off, but he's going to have to be very wary of how he enters into reading. There's a minute left, and Psycho can just do the coverage that will be needed to protect that plant of Kamikaze. He was holding on to the diffuser, but he'll need to go for a plant in the corner. He takes out Wog, so there's nobody that's going to be able to pressure from inside of Laundry. A bit of apprehensiveness, but there we go. Kamikaze getting that diffuser down. Julio watching pillars, Psycho watching white stairs. That's what you need. Julio taken out of action, so Nip will trail, but they get the diffuser down, and anybody who walks into the line of sight of the Zofia is as good as dead. 2 kills for Kamikaze, but he gets traded off, and a pinch is about to come in from Psycho. He's going to have too much to look at, and he has poor target prioritization. A great round from PZD, and both he as well as Hugzord play that one perfectly as they collapse and pinch the remaining members of NIP in what was a very scary situation for Black Dragons and very easily could have been match point for NIP.
It's the same story as the last match, which was also on this map. If you don't clear out above, you're gonna have a bad time. Surprise, surprise. And NIP got control of site. Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. Good for them. They didn't clear out above fully. The roamers collapsed on them in the end, and the retake came in because of a well-established crossfire and good teamwork for Black Dragons. Again, that synergy, or lack thereof, is alleviated and made easier by defense, just naturally. So now that BD is on defense, it's not as hard for them to link up and do things together. They did very well in that round to do just that. But again, the main thing is really, it's just the strategy from NIP. Their main focus was on coming into the actual site floor from below. And that's all well and good, but it doesn't matter if you plant if you can't stay alive to hold it in the post. So when you're getting collapsed on by the guys above, I mean, it's really easy for those defenders to win those engagements, generally speaking. And of course, there's PZD's individual performance to highlight, that he's winning those gunfights with the UMP, and in head-to-head gunfights, no less. But in general, yeah, it's just a lack of focus upstairs. Now, keep in mind, Pino did die to a C4 from below, and he was set up to take the top floor. So it's entirely possible that Pino's intention was to clear out upstairs, start applying vertical pressure, and then, oh yeah, you're going to be able to plant, and I'll cover you from above. But that's just one player, and it's not a lot of focus, really, to be placing on something like Kafe top floor. Again, I'm seeing much faster attack strategies on this map from LATAM so far. Of the 4 teams we've seen play on it, much faster attack strategies than I'm used to seeing from North America, for example, because of the difference in defensive meta. But I would say that those rounds are really ending before they should, because it's not necessarily all about the operators. It's also because the attack is they're not being thorough. They're not, fully clearing stuff out before they attack. They're not finishing their steps, and they're also not checking before they peek. Red stairs, drop down. There goes Muzi, Hugzord with a very aggressive play.
And that's a major detriment for Ninjas in Pyjamas as well. You look at the lineup that's being brought from Black Dragons, and IQ is very good at finding PZD, Lagonis, Hugzord, and Hornetow's gadgets. That IQ now being gone means that you are going to have to rely on your drones to spot those yokai drones, to spot those pests, to spot the jammers. And this will be a very stifling defense. Not only are you depriving information from NIP with the Mute and Mozzie combo, but additionally, you're also depriving them of their ability to just launch in projectiles. Those Goyo shields are going to soak up at least 3 grenades, explosives, whatever you have on the board. And then, of course, you've got to work around the ADSs of Hornetow, which will eat up 6 of those grenades or those projectiles too. So this will be a major challenge for NIP. And you mentioned that this has been very aggressive. It's just been them literally just going on in and immediately taking fights and kind of setting a very fast tempo for a map like Kafe. NIP might at some point realize that we just need to jump in, and well, Pino gets caught out on a beautiful read from Hornetow. It looked like one of the yokais was giving him that call on the window, as you can usually see those rappel lines.
Parker, I'm sorry, did you say aggressive? No, it couldn't be. Plays like that Hornetow play right there, that's not aggression, that's game sense. Julio takes down Wag. Hugzord responds with a second shotgun blast onto Julio. The top of red stairs is not in control for the attack, and the yokai drone giving full information on Kamikaze means that it's likely Hugzord's going to win this fight. Yes, he does. Kamikaze eliminated. That's the 3rd for Hugzord, who has just been trouncing around Cigar, surviving, and in fact thriving, getting multiple kills one after another, as NIP attempt to 1v1 him one after another. There's the last 1v1, but it might be someone else who gets the kill. I'm not sure. Nope. 4K for Hugzord, and BD take another defense.
And of course, that entire round is overlooking the fact that it was a mining, dining defense. We don't really see mining or dining be be played like that. That's just not a site that really pops up. And I think it also just speaks once again, and I hate to be a broken record, but it once again speaks to the fact that teams don't like this bar cocktail site at all. Black Dragon's rotation right now is going to be reading, mining, and kitchen. That's what they're rolling with. And I mean, so far it's working. They've taken these 2 defender rounds in a row. The attackers have been, reduced to a single round victory so far. This is very commonplace when there's a Thatcher and a Maverick band. We saw a very similar thing occur where it was 8 defensive rounds to 4 attacking rounds in the phase singularity matchup on Kafe with identical attacker bands. So expect Black Dragons to presumably be able to catch up to NiP. Now, the thing is that we are looking at, if this pattern holds, a draw between these 2 teams, which is what we saw in the very first matchup, which means we need all 12 rounds to settle this one out. And NiP came into this side swap with a huge boost of momentum that has just been entirely, it's been squandered. It's gone. It's been reduced to nothing. And Black Dragons playing aggressively, as we saw in that previous round and the round before, knowing how to control that 3rd floor, not hindered by the fact that there's a bomb site up there, but still playing as if there were. Black Dragons has a confidence now on defense where they certainly didn't look like this sure of a team on attack. And I mean, it just goes to show you that when you have a defender-sided map like Kafe, teams are far more prepared to deal with whatever the attackers throw at them, and you have an innate advantage just because of the way the sides work.
It also, I think, is supported by the fact that Black Dragons, their synergy on attack was non-existent. Now they're starting to really, work together more as a squad. But, and again, that naturally happens with the defense, whether it's Kafe or another map. So, here we go. Kitchen. Looks like it's going to be a top-down clear for Ninja Pyjamas. At least that's what they're setting up for right now. Psycho's eating a little bit of damage over by the garage as he attempts to insert himself into the building. Light drone work being done by Ninja Pyjamas. There is a roamer on the top floor. That's the Jaeger of Hornetau. He will be spotted at the top of White Stairs. And he will win the fight against Psycho. That's really impressive. Hornetau ate a lot of damage there, but he still won it, and that's what's most important. So, Psycho, your Zofia, gone. The rotation cutoff non-existent. There's 4 people in garage. What is happening? Kamikaze gets 1 and a second. Can barely see that because the kill feed's getting delayed. And a 3rd with his pistol. That's a 4th now down with his pistol. I got an idea, everyone. Let's peek Kamikaze. It doesn't work. Lagonis now the last defender. He's got to find 4. He's getting aggressive in the main bar. He'll find 1 and the second. Beautiful shots here. It's working for Lagonis where it didn't work for the rest of his team, but site control now for Ninjas in Pyjamas. He'll get tagged up from the site, and he knows he's got to deal with that, but he wants to retake over by White Garage. I'm not sure if this is going to work for him, but he's got the rotation. Probably going to be red. These are planted now, and yeah, it has been red. Stun's going out to delay. The pre-fire's in, but there's Lagonis with the lineup. He gets his 3rd, nearly the 4th, but he gets stopped by the shield. Pino on full HP versus Lagonis on 25. Though advantage for sure to Pino, but Lagonis is hitting his headshots, so it might not matter. It's a very tense 1v1. The vault must have been heard. And Pino challenges the win. There it is. NiP will get the round, but just barely.
So close. It's one of those things where it's like, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, and nobody from NiP really knew how to deal with that kind of metaphor. And in this particular instance, it was under the heat that we saw Lagonis thrive. He shuts down the ace potential from Kamikaze, as that thermite was only a single kill away. And you know that Kamikaze wanted it, but those are massive kills for Lagonis. 3 kills, those are all the 3 that he has, and they are hugely impactful, but because they lose the round, you fear that that impact is kind of lost. So, not terrible, though, if you're Black Dragons. You've got a good track record on both the reading and the mining bomb sites. Now the site selection opens things up a bit because reading is once again playable, and you go there if you're Black Dragons. Cocktail has still not been played by them. It's come out twice from NiP. But Black Dragons, their ability to hold that 3rd floor has been really strong. They have not given up Cigar. They have not given up Cocktail at all. And they can play from those positions with confidence and an awful lot of strength. And NiP have just suffered. They've suffered at the hands of the Mute and the Mozzie. They've suffered at the ability for Black Dragons to soak up a lot of their gadgetry. And I don't know if NiP is going to be able to successfully flush out Black Dragons on that 3rd floor hold that they have.
I don't know either. I mean, This has been a really interesting match, Parker. I don't know if you'd agree with me on that one, but it's been different. So far, Nip's attack that they just won, I don't think they should have been able to win. They got the match point off of it. Congratulations to them, but they shouldn't have won that. 4 people peaked Kamikaze the same way, and 4 people lost that same fight. It's not as if Kamikaze had some sort of advantage. He was holding the angle and hit his shots. That's the end of that story. It seemed like BD panicked a little bit. And I don't know. I mean, that could have easily been the follow through to the comeback that BD have been putting up, but now they get maximum 1 point. What is this, reading? I believe it is. And yeah, so it's reading bomb site, but it's a roam from BD, typical stuff on the top floor. 3 players. Hugzord's done some really big work in Cigar. Now, the last 5 matches we've had in Pro League have used every single round possible across regions, the last 5 matches. So if this match ends before BD manages to bring it to a draw, then that record will have been stopped. Bog's going to get the leadoff kill here for BD, so they're going to start things off right. A second kill there, this time for PZD as he runs out from Bakery.
Well, given the fact that it took us almost 35 to 40 minutes to get into our very first matchup, it's actually quite remarkable that it's 8:20 here on the East Coast right now. We are really only 20 minutes behind what should be the next matchup starting, which really isn't that bad. Another kill from Black Dragons will come out, though, and they are looking to try and prolong this as long as possible, obviously fighting for that single point, as there are the death throes of Ninjas in Pajamas with Julio out, peeking around the corner, and he is just not quick enough. Commanding performance from Black Dragons once again, just working the top of red stairs, which ends up being an individual casket for each member of NIP. They cannot get a single inch at all. And it's another round for Black Dragons, who will need to fight for this draw.
So, solid defense there of Cigar for BD. Biggest thing is that it was a defense of Cigar, and the site was actually reading, so yeah. Again, the focus from NIP, I mean, they've tried several different things, right? They've tried to attack reading directly just by coming from below. They've tried to clear out the top floor, and both of those attempts, whatever time they've been brought, have failed, to my recollection. So it's not necessarily NIP's way of addressing the site. It's more, I guess, the way that BD is holding it so aggressively. Now, we're going to mining. A little bit of a different site. Of course, before this match started, neither of these teams had played mining, and I don't think NIP did. I think BD brought us here once before, but before this match, neither of these teams in recent history really played this site. I think it's just a little bit of an adaptation for BD, because they want to try and present something new to NIP. And when you're up against the wall of match point, I'd say, hey, try whatever works, or whatever you think might work. And we'll see if this is going to work out well for BD, or if it's going to be a pitfall for them. But they're up against the wall, so you may as well bring out anything. Speaking of bringing out anything. Psycho on the Montaigne.
We've been critical of him playing Montaigne before, because Julio is usually the person on this team that is far more comfortable playing on the shields, but Psycho is no slouch, and he has shown on a variety of different maps, Clubhouse being a very memorable one, as to the fact that not only is he excellent at calling, he's the primary IGL for NIP in a lot of instances, but he's also able to get tons of kills with the pistol in hand from the shield, dropping at the right moment, playing around corners, being able to shut people down. So I had mentioned that last round NIP was in their death throes. Well, I mean, it certainly seems like they are desperately trying anything, and a Montaigne on Kafe is excellent. Get established inside of Cigar, push up towards White Stairs. Unless you're getting flanked, you are just an unstoppable force. You are a runaway train. You cannot be slowed down, and there's really not much that can be done. There is a yokai on the board, 2 of them rather, from Lagonis, but there's no smoke. And as the Goyo shields get taken out, this pathway forward for NIP is going to clear up. Additionally, we've seen Legion's pick rate drop quite substantially after his changes, so 2 of the greatest nuisances, Smoke and Legion for the Monty, are just simply gone.
Okay, well, an escape there by Hugzord, but he wastes the C4. He was trying to get it through to the top of red stairs to possibly catch someone behind Montaigne. Not the case, though. Montaigne, clearly a serious problem for Black Dragons. They have not set up to account for it. You're right. The counters that could be brought to counter Montaigne have not been brought, and Psycho is really happy about that. Air jab detonation could actually be beneficial there to Hornetow, but he's not going to force it, which allows Psycho to rotate. Now he's made his way into Cocktail. Control for top floor is almost fully established now for Ninjas in Pyjamas, and it looks like, yes, the last defender has fallen back through the drop down. So the one difference really that allowed for this control to be established for Ninjas in Pyjamas, who have struggled to establish the control of the top floor in the past, is Montaigne. That's it.
As long as you can make Monty's path forward as easy as possible, then he's excellent for being able to get that map control. You know, there are few operators that can just be as unrelenting as he is. Just a constant push forward as you feel the pressure come out. And oh my goodness, down goes the Echo as you see Lagonis a little too preoccupied with his toys. He's finished off, but he'd get picked right back up. Julio and Pino are there. Lagonis finished off, unable to control the SMG-11. This looks like Nip is going to finally be able to drive the dagger into the heart of Black Dragons despite the staying power of this defensive team. Time really not working in their favor, though, and they'll need to find both Hornetow and PZD. Mark's coming in. Julio wins that gunfight. It's all going to come down to the Mozzie. He can't do it. The Buck does it better. And Nip, in the final moments, with Pino there on a tiny bit of HP, he'll slam the door on Black Dragons, being able to come back any more than they have. Ninjas in Pyjamas, well, Black Dragons make them work for it, but ultimately, we don't need every single round. 7-4 in favor of Nip.
Oh, it's a sad day, I suppose. That has broken the record of every round being used. It was 5 matches in a row for Pro League, and now, well, BD just couldn't bring it all the way to the draw. Such a crying shame for them.